Greetings all, FerrariMan601 here. Welcome to the live commentary stream for the 2019 Japanese Grand Prix. We have got ourselves a couple of minutes before 9 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, before qualifying gets underway. We have ourselves an incredibly truncated state of affairs going on this weekend at Suzuka. Mostly, actually entirely, because of the effects of the typhoon, which has impacted Japan yesterday and today. And of course, all of our thoughts are very much with the people of Japan right now, particularly in the area of Tokyo and its immediate surroundings. They're dealing with a world of hurt right now. And of course, we do hope that everything is going to be as okay as it possibly can be for the people of Japan. Getting all of our things synchronized here. And I've got positive talkbacks on everything. We're about 4.5 minutes away from the green light going on at the end of the pit lane at Suzuka. Just a little bit of a disclaimer for anybody who may be tuning into one of these for the first time. This is a commentary stream, and I invite all of you to chat. And I see that some of you have already joined the chat. Hello to Nick Libby and Sun or Soon Levy or Levi. Not quite sure how to pronounce your name there. Hello to both of you. Welcome. Christian Gaitan. Good evening, F-Man. Well, good evening, Christian. Thank you very much. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and it's been a very long time since I've done one of these for qualifying specifically. But because we have such a strange weekend and a strange Grand Prix happening later on today, I figured let's chime in here and give you guys some live commentary. Again, this is commentary. This is not a stream of the actual feed from FOM. I am not going to be showing you any real-world Formula One content here because I don't own the rights to that, and the FOM very much want me to tell you that. So this is a commentary stream only. Holy Volcano, hello. Omega, hello. How are you? Good evening. And Omega asking us the question, who do we think is going to get pole position? Well, the driver who finishes first in Q3 is going to get pole position. And most likely that's going to be one of the Mercedes men, specifically Lewis Hamilton. That is my pick for pole position today. It looks like an absolutely beautiful day over there at Suzuka in the Mie Prefecture there in Japan. Only about 100 or so miles north of this, though, the typhoon impacted in the area around Tokyo. And I did see some pretty harrowing images coming out of Tokyo earlier today and even late last night when some of that started to come ashore there. There is a very stiff breeze at Suzuka from what we can see from the Sky Sports feed. Not entirely sure as to the direction of that particularly stiff breeze, but the flags there are all outstretched pretty much to their maximum extent. We can see the Red Bull Racing and the Max Verstappen flag there at the top of the grandstand. There is quite a breeze blowing at Suzuka, and of course that's going to wreak havoc with these cars, which of course are extremely sensitive to wind. They're generating so much downforce, yes, but a headwind with a car like this, all of a sudden it's generating more downforce than even the speed that it's already traveling is going to gather. Conversely, a tailwind is going to remove some downforce for these cars. Christian is asking, is the track still wet? Well, I don't know. I don't think the track is wet at this time, as the cameras now pick up Lewis Hamilton sitting in the garage. We've just got about 1.5 minutes before the green lights go on at the end of the pit lane there. Now we're looking at Sebastian Vettel sitting there in the Ferrari. Drivers' point standings on the screen now on your Sky Sports feed. Lewis Hamilton, of course, leads the Drivers' Championship, 322 points over Valtteri Bottas, his teammate, with 249. So, that is quite the commanding lead to have at this late stage in the season. There is effectively no doubt that Lewis Hamilton will win his 6th World Championship this year. However, will we get any more surprises farther down the order? It's certainly possible. But again, I do not think the track is particularly wet, if at all, at this time. Constructors' Championship standings, Mercedes with 571 points over Ferrari in second place with 409. Red Bull, 98 points behind Ferrari with 311. So, yes, that is the story basically of the entirety of the turbo hybrid era. We've got ourselves basically no competition at the front. A very, very strong and well-established pecking order has been established. Just giving you guys something reasonable to put on your screens now. And the green light is on. At the end of the pit lane, looks like the two Ferraris have led one of the McLarens out onto the track for the first time since yesterday morning in free practice 1 and 2. Charles Leclerc leads Sebastian Vettel out through turns 1 and 2. One of the McLarens is in tow. Not entirely sure which one it is. It is either Carlos Sainz or Lando Norris. I believe it is Carlos Sainz, and indeed it is. Out on track right now, we have Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg, Robert Kubica, and George Russell. Lando Norris now has also taken to the track as we take a look at Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo garage, getting ready to go out on his first and hopefully first of 3 qualifying runs. Kimi Raikkonen a little bit uncharacteristically off form in the last couple of races. However, he'll be looking for some redemption. Omega asking me, what are my thoughts on McLaren Mercedes? Well, if McLaren and Mercedes have come to a mutually beneficial agreement in terms of that 2021 engine supply, more power to them. It'll be very nice for me to be able to say McLaren Mercedes again. That takes me back quite a ways. And, of course, McLaren did have some pretty good success with Mercedes power in the past, so hopefully this deal will be better than the Honda deal that ran from 2015 to 2017. Looking in the Mercedes garage, Lewis Hamilton has been sitting in the car for quite a while already. There doesn't appear to be any particular sense of urgency around him. They're waiting for all the back markers basically to go down and set a time before Mercedes will go out with the shock and awe routine and get that pole position. Camera's picking up Nico Hülkenberg, the 11th place driver with 34 points to his name. A little bit of smoke coming out of that Renault as a local yellow goes up in sectors 1 and 3. And we have a crash. That is Robert Kubica, I do believe. Indeed it is, and a red flag is out. Robert Kubica appears to have lost it in the final corner, and that is some significant damage to that Williams. The front wing is gone, and it appears that there is damage along the left side of that car as well. The rear wing appears to be askew. Kubica is making his way out of the car now. He appears to be fine, but there is now a red flag. The clock is stopped at 15 minutes, 51 seconds. Of course, we don't have any safety cars in qualifying, so the red flag is out. All the cars will return to the pit lane, and there it is. There's damage along the left side and rear of that Williams. In addition to the front wing being gone, Robert Kubica has exited the car, and he's putting the steering wheel back on. He appears to be totally fine. That is good news. Kubica now making his way back to the pits. Let's go on board. He just dropped it off the left side of the circuit, leaving the final corner, and that is all she wrote. Unfortunately, Robert Kubica, our first car to be eliminated here in qualifying, and it is all due to what would appear to be his own error, just a misjudgment in terms of being able to sight that white line on the left side of the circuit. Radio. That radio amounted to Kubica saying that he is okay, and we're very thankful for that. On board in real time once again. And yes, he just dropped it off the left-hand side of the circuit. It very much reminds me of an accident that Juan Pablo Montoya had here in the 2005 iteration of the Japanese Grand Prix, in addition to Timo Glock having a similar accident in the 2009 race. I believe that was also in qualifying. And again, we are under red flag. Kubica has made it back into the pit lane. He's taking his helmet off, and he appears to be just fine. Now, this is an interesting question for Williams. Is that car going to be repairable for the race, which is going to be happening in just about 4 hours' time? Can they go through the rest of this 60-minute qualifying session, get the car back if they're not going to be able to do it now under red flag, and rebuild it in time to make the grid for the race. That is very much in question at this time. The Japanese marshals are out in force, and they do an absolutely fantastic job every year at this circuit. They're already sweeping the track by hand. They're rebuilding the barrier, and another team of marshals has gone out to retrieve the stricken Williams. Nick Libby, yes. In terms of Kubica, he's probably not going to remain in Formula One beyond the end of this year. We already know that he's going to be leaving Williams. Beyond Formula One, though, there are many opportunities for a driver of his caliber. Those of you who may be newer to the sport, Robert Kubica was going to be a Ferrari driver in 2012, partnering Fernando Alonso at that team. And unfortunately, he had that colossal rally accident in 2011, and that basically ended his Formula One career. He made a return rather triumphantly this year. He had a test drive in 2017 with Renault. He had a similar arrangement in 2018 with Williams, but 2019 is when the only Polish driver to win a Grand Prix, and I believe the only Polish driver in the history of the sport, came back full-time to a race seat. And unfortunately, it's a combination of things. The car is certainly not great. And unfortunately, the injuries that Mr. Kubica sustained in that rally accident definitely did change him as a person and changed him as a driver. But beyond Formula One, somebody of his caliber certainly will have opportunities, whether it is over here stateside in IMSA or if it is in the World Endurance Championship, a complete shakeup of the rules happening in the next couple of years for that series. A place like that may well be good for Kubica. Other drivers who have overcome physical challenges to race competitively again. Alex Zanardi, he is a double amputee. He lost both of his legs in an accident in a kart race at Lausitz in 2001, and he is still driving in IMSA, courtesy of hand controllers in his BMW M8 car. They're able to do amazing things in order to adapt those cars to fit different drivers of different capacities, and Alex Zanardi still very much has a career. Billy Monger racing in Formula 4 and Formula 3, being able to be successful, also another double amputee, that young driver. So there are opportunities available for drivers who do have physical challenges. Unfortunately, Formula 1, just the nature of the beast that it is, they don't have as much facility to be able to adapt these cars for drivers who need it. Meanwhile, we are still under red flag. The clock has frozen at 15:51 on the countback. Most of the drivers appeared to still be sitting in their cars, looking into the eyes of now the sole remaining Williams, of George Russell. I beg your pardon, that was Max Verstappen. Very similar helmets, those two. Particularly this weekend, Max Verstappen appears to be running a slightly different helmet design. Looked like Russell's, but it was not. Sergio Perez in the Racing Point garage looking over setup sheet or whatever it may be. Perhaps it was just a newspaper. Who knows? These guys have got to be feeling a little bit strange coming back into the cockpit for the first time in 24 hours. Normally, we would have had free practice 3 already this morning. However, that was also canceled due to the typhoon. Therefore, this is the first time these guys have been in the car since free practice 2. It's the first time they've been in the car in over 24 hours. So definitely we've got ourselves an interesting timetable as far as the drivers are concerned. It looks like Kubica's car has been returned to the pit lane, and Williams are now taking possession of it. They're very frantically covering it up so that they can get it back into the garage. However, they have a lot of work to do if they're going to be getting this thing ready to start a Grand Prix in about 3 hours and 40 minutes. We do not yet have any word from race control in terms of when the session will be restarted. Again, Kubica's car has been returned to the pit lane, and I did see a couple of safety vehicles driving off of the circuit. So I do believe the track has been cleared. Perhaps they will do a manual sweep one more time in case any small pieces of debris have returned back onto the circuit. And now, as I speak, race control says that the session will restart at 10:10 local time. That is just about 45 seconds from now. And right on schedule, we see cars in the pit lane. We have Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, And having some trouble identifying. It's a Toro Rosso. I cannot identify whose Toro Rosso it is, but Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, and one of the Toro Rossos now queuing up at the red light, waiting for it to go green. Race control announcement. DRS has been re-enabled, and we should get a session restart at any moment. Lights are green at the end of the pit lane. Antonio Giovinazzi leads Kimi Raikkonen out. Both Toro Rossos lining up two abreast, followed by both Racing Points and George Russell in the sole remaining Williams. Iona, hello. Royal, however you pronounce the other part of your name. Hello. Ayrton, hello. Again, the session has resumed. Clock now showing 14 minutes and 50 seconds and counting. Mark, 14:50. Looking at the Mercedes garage, they are just resuming the preparations that they had already been taking before the red flags came out. Again, no particular sense of urgency. The car's not even switched on. Out on track right now, Sainz, Albon, Perez, Gasly, Norris, Raikkonen, Kvyat, Grosjean, Stroll, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Hülkenberg, and Russell. And just as I finish all of that, Leclerc and Vettel and Sainz now back out on track. As of this time, Verstappen is still in the pit lane. Albon is on an outlap. Kimi Raikkonen now has started a flying lap for the first time in this session, making his way through the S's now. And with the speed trace, looks like apex speed through the final S is about 200 clicks exactly. And then coming up toward the Degner curves, this is a very high G, high-stress moment for the cars and the drivers equally. Through Degner 1, just barely a lift, 246 clicks. Braking harder for the second, and much tighter Degner corner, still exiting at about 193 clicks. Toward the hairpin with Mr. Raikkonen, Giovinazzi, of course, following him about 5 seconds down the road. Coming down toward the legendary Spoon corner here. He'll build up to about 285 kilometers per hour before jumping on the brakes for the first part of Spoon. Little squirt on the throttle and then down a couple more gears to the second part. Little twitch for Raikkonen coming through the meat of the Spoon corner, but he still makes a good exit. Now down the back straight here, down the west circuit here at Suzuka, and approaching the legendary flat out in 8th gear 130R corner. Apex speed 312 kilometers per hour, very fast on the exit, passing one of the Renaults there, who is on an outlap, and a little bit of traffic through the triangle for Kimi Raikkonen. However, through the final corner, he keeps it on the road very much at this point. Raikkonen across the line, 131.331. That is provisional pole position at this time, and he's immediately eclipsed by his teammate Antonio Giovinazzi, probably with a little bit of a tow from the Renault. 130.558. Times are now going to start coming down as the circuit begins to rubber in and the faster guys start to come out. Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso, 129.614. He's followed in P2 now by his teammate Daniel Kvyat, who is 0.109 behind. And if you are wondering about what the weather conditions are in Japan here, well, the circuit is quite obviously dry, but yes, we're seeing vortices, and we have another accident now at the final corner. That is a Haas. Another red flag has been thrown. Who is this? That is Kevin Magnussen. Kevin Magnussen has thrown it off the road again in the final corner, coming back onto start-finish, almost exactly in the same place as where Robert Kubica lost his Williams. There does not appear to be quite as much damage on this car as there was on the Williams of Kubica, but the front end very much has made contact with the barriers, but all four wheels still appear to be on it, as does the front wing. However, Magnussen has managed to keep that car rolling. He's punched up reverse, and he is rejoining the circuit at this time. The front wing, at least partially, appears to be detached from the Haas. We need a better shot of the front end. However, Kevin Magnussen has kept the engine running, and he has resumed. Yes, the left-hand side of that front wing main plane has been damaged, and the rear wing also now is sitting quite askew, so there was some front and rear impact on that Haas. That car is not going to be good to resume the remainder of this session. However, the damage does appear to be somewhat superficial and somewhat localized to the front and rear wings. That car may well live to fight another day. On board with Magnussen through the triangle, on the power, gets a whole bunch of opposite lock-on, and then the back end never really settled down. It was just a spin, and he actually had everything gathered back up, but he ran out of road, and he punted those barriers with the rear end, and then it snapped back around, and he got the front. Basically, he was sitting in a four-wheel drift from the exit of the triangle all the way through that final corner. Rather heavy contact with those tire barriers with the rear wing, and that accounts for the rear wing having essentially collapsed. But it did appear to be a rather square hit on the rear wing. It did not seem to involve the rear suspension very much, if at all. So that Haas may well just need a new front and rear wing, and it may well live to fight for the Grand Prix. Super slow-mo now with Kevin Magnussen. That car was just bouncing all through Casio there. That is the final chicane. We've just got ourselves so much action going on in this qualifying session, and we're still not even halfway through Q1. Magnussen still recovering to the pits. That car, of course, is very much drivable. Just trying to take a look at the rear wing. I don't see the camber or toe off very much, if at all, on the rear axle. The front axle appears to be a little bit askew. It could just be the proportions of the front wing now being largely destroyed, but the left front wheel on that Haas does appear to be sitting ever so slightly askew. Has he just bent a wheel and the tire is still somehow holding pressure, or has he broken a wheel hub or a track rod? Obviously, Haas will be taking a very close look at that. Magnussen now recovers to the pit lane. Taking a closer look now at the rear end of that Haas, it does appear that the rear crash structure has been hit, and it has been turned askew ever so slightly. That does bolt onto the back of the gearbox, so we have to assume that the gearbox has been tweaked ever so slightly. We don't really know as to the extent of any gearbox damage. If there is going to be gearbox damage on that Haas and it necessitates a gearbox change, that's going to be a grid penalty for Magnussen. However, at this point, he's most likely not going to be seeing any more action in qualifying, I would assume, and therefore any component changes will necessitate penalties. I would guess that if Magnussen or Kubica are able to take the start today, they'll be starting from the pit lane. Track temperature. I can't get any hard figures on track temperature at this time. I would not be surprised if we hear something about that shortly. Trying to go through the data streams that I've got. See if we can get any more information. In replay, we're now on board with Robert Kubica once again. Again, this is in replay. This is his incident earlier on, which brought out the first red flag. Only about 150, 200 meters down the road from where Magnussen most recently has launched the back end of that Haas. Air temperature at Suzuka, 22.3 C. Track temperature, 34.9 C. So it's actually a reasonably warm day there in Suzuka. Wind speeds, they are showing at 1 kilometer per hour. That cannot possibly be accurate. Those flags are whipping around quite a bit there. Humidity is at 61.2%, and the pressure is 1008.2 millibars. So actually, we've got ourselves almost perfect standard air conditions there at Suzuka right now. The humidity is a little bit high, but I think you'd expect that considering that there was just a hurricane that blew through the area. Race control saying that session will restart at 10:21 local time, and that puts us at about 1 minute from now. Haas mechanics have frantically removed the bodywork from the back of Magnussen's car. Undoubtedly, they're taking a look at the gearbox. They've also taken the front wing and nose cone assembly off. That should be a relatively simple fix. Anything at the rear, though, is going to take markedly longer. We're now seeing Mercedes going out into the pit lane. Both Mercedes, both Ferraris, both Renaults, both McLarens. It is a veritable traffic jam there at the red light, waiting for things to go green, which should happen in a few seconds. Lewis Hamilton radio not quite audible there. It was a little bit garbled. Waiting for the red lights to go green. Everybody lining up there at the end of the pit lane. Iona asking the question, do you prefer the word typhoon or hurricane? And now, according to the FOM video feed, 23 kilometers per hour is the wind speed. Green lights are now on at the end of the pit lane, and everybody just waiting their turn to drop the clutch and get back in line with themselves. Green flags are up around the circuit. And to finish that point, do I prefer the word typhoon or hurricane? Well, to be honest, I don't think I really have a preference. We call them hurricanes here in the Western Hemisphere. In the East, they're called typhoons. In the Southeast, they're called cyclones, just generic tropical cyclones. They're basically all exactly the same sorts of storm. A hurricane is a tropical cyclone, is a typhoon. I want to give an etymology lesson on this, but I'm not entirely sure of it. I know precisely where the word hurricane comes from. It comes from, I believe, Aztec. And, of course, when the Spanish explorers came to the Americas for the first time, they had never really seen a storm like that because hurricanes don't tend to hit Europe. So the Aztecs had the word huracán for those storms, and the Spanish just took that word directly, and huracán is how you say hurricane in Spanish to this day, and obviously hurricane comes from huracán. I don't know precisely where typhoon comes from. I know that typhon or something like that is Greek, and I think it has something to do with winds, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure somebody will correct me on that. What time is it on my side? Matias Corvino wants to know. It is 21:23. It's 9:23 p.m. here. Who do I think will get pulled today? It's going to be one of the Mercedes drivers, almost undoubtedly, most likely Lewis Hamilton. Currently on provisional pole, however, it is Pierre Gasly in the Toro Rosso. Nobody's really gotten a proper run together because we've had 2 red flags only in 5 minutes of on-track time. Valtteri Bottas now going through the hairpin, finishing up Sector 1 of this lap, heading in almost toward the end of Sector 2 now in Spoon Corner, on board with the Finn. Just pulling up 8th gear. Nope, I'm going to hold off on that until he's through Spoon. A little bit of a wobble there from Bottas. He had a big moment in FP1. He almost got into the back of Charles Leclerc. Now coming down the back straight, now he'll pull 8th gear, coming up past 300 kilometers an hour into 130R. Does he lift? He shouldn't. He has no need to. There's so much grip and downforce in these cars. Easy flat through 130R, now braking into the Senna-Prost corner, the first element of the chicane that is really the 3-element Casio triangle. Now, through the final corner, can Bottas keep it on the road? Yes, he has done, and immediately he goes provisional pole with a 129.413. Yes, Nick Libby, Lamborghini, their car, the Huracan, yes, it is the Lamborghini Hurricane. And many Lamborghini models, they actually have Spanish names rather than Italian ones. For example, Diablo is Spanish for devil, in contrast to the very similar Italian Diavolo, which is devil. Murciélago is Spanish for bat, and I don't know how to say bat in Italian, but murciélago is very much a Spanish word. Aventador, it is not really a Spanish word. It could be a Spanish given name for something, certainly not a person. Perhaps a fighting bull could be called Aventador. Vengador would be avenger in Spanish, so Aventador sort of like that. Matthias asks, weren't Lambos called after fighting bulls? Yes, many of them were named after fighting bulls. I don't know which ones specifically were, but I do know that many Lamborghini models have been named after Spanish fighting bulls, so that's why many Lamborghini models have Spanish names. Coming up on 6 minutes to go in the session, I'll give you a hack so you can synchronize all of your clocks. Kimi Raikkonen in the pits. 6 minutes, 1 mark. 6 minutes. On provisional pole at this time is Ferrari Charles Leclerc with a 129.405. He is 3.5 tenths ahead of P2, currently occupied by Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. On board in replay with Valtteri Bottas going almost exactly the same as Kevin Magnussen, exiting the triangle there back through the final corner. Lots of opposite lock, of course. These guys trying to get the power on as quickly as they can to lose the minimal amount of time coming down start finish. However, the circuit, as you can see, very much not rubbered in. Lots of heavy rain yesterday. Definitely washed this place clean. So not all that much mechanical grip out there. Of course, once these guys are going out and they're doing some longer runs, and really we won't see that until the Grand Prix, the track will start to rubber in. So they're very much dependent on high-speed grip right now. On board with Lewis Hamilton, the world champion, through Casio. Second apex, third apex. The run down through the final corner to the line. Is this going to be provisional pole? No, it is not. He is 3.3 off of the provisional time of Charles Leclerc. Again, Leclerc doing a 128.405. Hamilton 0.33 off of that at this time. Opinions on RF2's ASR mods or ASR's RF2 mods. Well, obviously, you're seeing the B-roll footage right now on board with the Ferrari 641 at Manicourt. Yeah, ASR do a much better job in R-Factor 2 than they have in Assetto Corsa as of late. Their work in RF2 is absolutely wonderful, and as you can see here, this is just a direct capture from the cockpit as I was driving. Yeah, it's a pretty intense sort of sensation when you get up to speed in one of these. On board with Romain Grosjean. At this point, I guess we can call him the sole remaining Haas in this field, at least for qualifying. He is currently sitting in P9, 1.167 off of Charles Leclerc's provisional pole time. And remember, this is just Q1. At the end of this session, 5 cars will be eliminated. The 5 slowest cars will be eliminated. At this point, those in the relegation zone are Stroll, Russell, Raikkonen. Magnussen and Kubica have not set times, and they will not set times. Gosi McRae, Magnussen threw it off in the final corner. He returned to the pits, but he had significant damage both to the front and rear of the car. It was drivable, but the front and rear wings were very heavily damaged, and we don't know if there was any gearbox damage or any suspension damage to that car. Robert Kubica did almost exactly the same thing. However, his accident was a bit higher speed, and there was much more damage to that Williams. The front end of the car completely destroyed. The rear end also had some pretty heavy damage. Kubica was fine, but that car will need some significant rebuilding if they are to make the field. Following Lance Stroll, about to begin his hot lap here with 2 minutes to go in this session. Valtteri Bottas giving him some room. Bottas is on a slow lap. Through turns 1 and 2 for the Canadian. Heading through the legendary Suzuka S's on this flyer. This is basically going to be his only shot at a good lap here. He may get across the line in time before the checkered flag is thrown to end Q1, but typically we see these guys going on one hot lap runs, and that's obviously what he'll be trying to do. How is he in the split time relative to Giovinazzi? He is half a second up. Giovinazzi is currently classified in P15, and he is on the bubble for elimination. Positions 16 through 20, they will be eliminated. Stroll exits the hairpin in third gear. Pretty much everybody has been taking third gear through the hairpin, and they've been doing this for the last couple of years. With these 8-speed gearboxes now, they really don't ever get into gears 2 or 1 on a typical lap other than Monaco, for example, with that very tight 30-mile-an-hour hairpin. Very heavily over the curbs for Lance Stroll, exiting Spoon, coming down the back straight now, heading toward 130R. Let's see, how brave is he? 312 kilometers an hour on the apex, about 314 on the exit, jumping on the brakes for the chicane. Right, left, and right again, hard on the throttle. No opposite lock moments for the Canadian, coming down to finish his lap, and the time is a 129.594. That's good for P10 at the moment. In theory, that's good for Q3. Kimi Raikkonen hoists himself up out of the relegation zone. He's now in P12. Daniel Ricciardo crosses the line. He's in P14. Perez now on the bubble. Currently on the elimination board are Perez, Hülkenberg, Russell, Magnussen, and Kubica we know about. Hülkenberg crosses the line. P13. Driver on the bubble, Daniel Kvyat. We have Carlos Sainz, I believe that is. Nope, that is Lando Norris. Just about to cross the line. Where does the young Brit end up? P4. Nice job, Lando. Pierre Gasly in 9th, and I do believe we have 2 more cars. George Russell, he cannot improve his time. He remains P18 and eliminated. Daniel Kvyat now approaching the line. He is P15. He remains in P15. Romain Grosjean still to cross. Where does the Frenchman land? He takes to the pit lane. Grosjean was safe anyway in P10. So, that concludes Q1. Drivers eliminated. Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, and George Russell of the cars that actually finished the session. They will line up 16th, 17th, and 18th, respectively. Kevin Magnussen and Robert Kubica failed to set a time in Q1, and therefore are eliminated by default. We don't know where they will be starting, whether or not they'll start on the grid or from the pit lane. It depends on whether or not they're able to get those cars repaired in time for the race. Provisional pole position, Charles Leclerc, 128.405. That is the benchmark now for Q2. Lewis Hamilton just 0.3 behind in second place. Valtteri Bottas in 5th. However, Lando Norris, that really is a nice lap time, just 0.4 off of Charles Leclerc for P4. Carlos Sainz, his McLaren teammate, in P7, 0.6 off of provisional pole position. McLaren looks rather strong today. Daniel Ricciardo, of course, not very happy about being eliminated in Q1. He's been called to the weighbridge. The FIA just doing a quick measurement of the weight of that car and driver combination. Remember, Daniel, don't spin the tires off of the weighbridge. Sebastian Vettel got in trouble for that last year, and they just push him off. I believe the car is already switched off anyway. Have about a 5-minute intermission now before we will begin Q2. Everybody else who needed to return to the pit lane is returning to the pit lane at this time. Christian, that's interesting. I'm watching ESPN right now, and they simulcast the Sky Sports feed. Double check your listings there, because I know ESPN is airing it. Q2 will start at 10:40 local time. That puts it at about 4.5 minutes away. Karen Chandok now taking a look at Kubica's accident. I assume he'll be looking at Kevin Magnussen's accident. Again, an in replay with Kubica. He's just getting himself up for a flying lap. And I don't know if he touched the exit curb with the rear or if he just got too much wheel spin trying to get the power on. Doesn't look like either thing happened, really. He just washed out wide. I don't know if there was crosswind in that area of the circuit or what, but the car just didn't turn. I don't know if he didn't turn it enough or if something else happened there, because he caught the grass and it definitely surprised him. But because the car is so heavily loaded off to the left side through that long and fast right-hand corner, the instant the left side wheels lose traction, that's it, you're off, and there's your date with the barrier. Well, Mag87, I will say that F1 TV has had its share of problems recently. I only, within the last couple of days, managed to get back into my account, even though I've had the service for well over a year. I think we're closer to 2 years in terms of me being subscribed to it. I don't know what happened, but I had absolutely no access to it whatsoever for the longest time, probably for 4 or 5 months. And then it came back all of a sudden on its own accord the other day. Karen Chandok walking us through some side-by-side action with Leclerc and Vettel there in the twin Ferraris. Obviously, Leclerc edging out his teammate this time around, but we've got 2 more bites at the cherry this time. Taking a look in the McLaren garage. There's Carlos Sainz just patiently waiting his turn to go back out. About 1 minute to go before the start of Q2. Volmag87, yes, I tried to log out and log back in. Problem was, it wouldn't let me log out or log in. I was stuck in limbo, and it simply wouldn't let me do anything. Nick Libby saying, yes, Leclerc really has surpassed my expectations this year. I think he's surpassed everybody's expectations this year. The guy is extremely young, and he is extremely inexperienced as far as being a Formula One driver, but he has absolutely set the world alight, taking 2 victories at 2 of the most prestigious events on the calendar, the Belgian Grand Prix and the Italian Grand Prix. Of course, that was a very popular win in both places. A very poignant moment as well, as his, not quite his countryman, but Frenchman Antoine Hubert being killed in the Formula 2 race only the day before, and then another French-speaking driver taking the win, and it's his first win the day after. That was a cool moment. And, of course, the Italian Grand Prix, driving for Ferrari, taking a win like that, that is definitely going to be a highlight on his resume. Green lights are on for Q2. Nobody is out on track yet, but the clock is running. 14:15. Mark? Let's see. Spain and Italy, unsupported for F1 TV. Most successful team in Formula One, Ferrari, Italian. One of the most successful drivers of the 21st century, Fernando Alonso, Spanish, unsupported, eh? Christian asking the very important question, what do you think of the 2021 rules debacle? Well, this is probably going to be the subject of an F-rant to come, probably in the off-season. But I like the idea of getting the cars to be more dependent on underbody aero rather than topside aero. Obviously, we've seen for the last 30 years the problems that wings can cause for cars trying to follow closely through high-speed corners. We know through real-world experience, particularly in IndyCar and even in the WEC in some cases, that ground effect aerodynamics much better for cars being able to follow each other. However, and all of this is still very murky, but the FIA appear, and it's encouraging that they've built a prototype. It very much is, but it appears that they are trying to go in the direction of standardization in terms of a standard floor or standard tunnels underneath the car to try and police the extent to which the teams can take advantage of the ground effect, because ground effect is not a new idea at all. Of course, as I mentioned, it's used in IndyCar, and it's the only reason that IndyCar is able to race on ovals. But ground effects in Formula One, it came out in the late 1970s. Lotus with their Type 79, very powerful ground effect car that won a world championship. The Brabham BT46B in 1978, the active ground effect car with the big fan at the back. Again, the FIA eventually banned all of that because they said the speeds were getting too high around the corners, and in those days, the circuits were unable to deal with it. They didn't have runoff. They didn't have the same sort of catch fencing that we have now. So there was a reason to get rid of the ground effect back in the early 80s. However, today, as you can see, Suzuka, this is an old racetrack. This place is 50 years old, and it really hasn't changed very much. But the amount of safety, the amount of trackside infrastructure that we have now to keep these guys safe, very much better than it was 30, 40 years ago. However, what the FIA did in banning ground effect was they set a precedent that whenever they don't like something, it's immediately banned. And then if they ever want to bring it back, they bring it back in a way that's so tightly regulated that the teams aren't able to take advantage of it in terms of trying to develop things of their own design, which is the point of Formula One. These teams are not only racing teams, they are manufacturers, constructors in their own right. And if they go the route of standardization in 2021 in terms of a standard floor or standard tunnels, or there's even talk of standard monocoques or standard gearboxes, things like that, you're not Formula One anymore. Effectively, you become a spec series that is essentially a much more expensive variant of IndyCar. And all respect to IndyCar, it's a great series and they put on a great show, but it already exists. Formula One is unique because the teams are constructors and all of the cars that you're seeing are unique and they're of a team's own design. If they go that standard equipment route, I do fear that Formula One, as we know it, will cease to exist, and Sebastian Vettel is going to be surprised as hell right now coming through 130R. No, that was Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel behind. Two very slow cars running through the middle of 130R. Charles Leclerc coming on them at a full race pace, basically, on a hot lap. 128.179 across the line for Charles Leclerc. Provisional pole at this time. He's the first driver to set a hot lap in Q2. Sebastian Vettel close behind, coming through the final corner. A little bit opposite lock there on the Ferrari, but the downforce grabs the car back. Sebastian Vettel now goes to P1 by just 5 thousandths, 128.174. Charles Leclerc 5 thousandths behind. Yes, that is .005. The Ferrari's absolutely dead even right now. Kimi Raikkonen is in third for the moment, 1.2 seconds back from Sebastian Vettel's time. That's the gap. Valtteri Bottas coming through the final corner now. What is going to be the time for the Mercedes man? But Lewis Hamilton, the number one driver for Mercedes, will be crossing the line in just a few seconds. Bottas goes P3, 128.305. Lewis Hamilton across the line immediately up to P1 provisionally, 127.826. He is .348 faster than Sebastian Vettel, who is now in P2. Max Verstappen crossing the line. The time 128.499, only good for P5. He's behind Valtteri Bottas. The order appears to be Mercedes, Ferrari, Mercedes in some order. Do Ferrari have a trick engine mode for Q3? We don't know, as we follow Kimi Raikkonen, who appears to be on a flyer right now. Kimi Raikkonen in P8 at the moment, on board with Max Verstappen, who is also on a flyer. He is up on his previous best. Raikkonen still classified P8. I don't know if he actually completed that lap. We continue to ride on board with Verstappen in P5. Through the spoon corner, there's a slower McLaren in front of Max Verstappen. He'll be dealing with some dirty air from that. Hopefully the McLaren yields. That's this lap ruined then for Max Verstappen. The McLaren not getting out of the way, and Max has backed out of it. Following Alex Albon, taking to the pit lane, it would appear, and indeed he does. Six and a half minutes to go in Q2. A little bit of a lull in the action now. Currently in the relegation zone are Gasly, Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Stroll, and Hülkenberg. Nobody currently out on track as far as timing and scoring says. Everybody has set their times on the red sidewalled soft compound tire. 3 compounds available this weekend, the soft, medium, and hard respectively. Both of the Ferraris are completely dismantled at the moment in their garages. Taking a look at the car of Charles Leclerc. One of the mechanics, actually 2 of the mechanics, sticking their noses in the under tray. Just checking for anything untoward. Everybody still in the garage now with 5 minutes, 37 seconds to go. At this point, if you're Ferrari, you suddenly became very tentative and tepid in terms of your perspective of this session. You're 3/10 per lap behind the Mercedes at this point. Coming up on 5 minutes to go. Mark, 5 minutes. Still nobody out on track at this time. The teams all do this, and in particular they do this in Q3, and they all tend to leave the pit lane with just enough time to get an out lap in and a hot lap in, and then they all complain about traffic. We saw this probably most significantly and most comically at Monza, where there was such a traffic jam in Q3. And I don't understand why they do it, because you know that you need a clear lap, so why would you wait until everybody else is going out? I'd be out there right now trying to put a quick lap in. Nobody else is out there. You've got the track to yourself. Conditions are not going to change all that much in the next 4 minutes. And I will say, taking a look at the grandstands, the wind is really whipping out there. And now, here is my point illustrated. Literally everybody who can go out is going out. We've got a Force India, a Renault, both McLarens, both Alfa Romeos. There is Grosjean. And one of the Toro Rossos. Can't identify it yet. It is Pierre Gasly. Three minutes, 21 seconds to go in Q2 rather. Yeah, that situation with Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly doing that seat swap at Toro Rosso and Red Bull, I don't really understand why they did it. I know that Gasly was not really impressing anybody at Red Bull, so they decided to give Albon the opportunity, but if it were me, I would have put Daniel Kvyat in that Red Bull, simply because he's far more experienced. Alex Albon, remember, he's still only in his first season. Two minutes, 30 seconds to go. Nobody is on a hot lap at this time. Everybody's still trying to jostle for position to get a clear run. They will have time for one flying lap, perhaps a second one at the end of the session if they manage to cross start-finish before the checkers fly. And Nico Hülkenberg reporting some sort of problem. He is going slowly and he's pulled offline. I did see smoke coming out of one of the Renaults in Q1. I don't know if it was Hülkenberg or Ricciardo. Whatever the case, something not quite right there for Nico Hülkenberg, and he is currently in P15 anyway. Lance Stroll begins a flyer. It should be his last attempt. Romain Grosjean on the bubble in P10 with a 129.494. Take a look at what happens over the next 1.5 minutes. Lance Stroll coming out of the S's toward the Degner curves. Looks like we're going to continue to follow him. Degner 1. Bang! That is a quick change of direction there. And, of course, the second Degner much slower and a much longer, deeper corner as well. Up to the hairpin for the Canadian. No lockups, no opposite lock moments. Very, very neat and tidy through the hairpin. And now, lots and lots of horsepower coming uphill and then downhill in this long right-hand run up to the spoon curve. Very high in 7th gear, throwing it into the first apex, let the car drift out wider, tuck it back in for the second one, and then slam the gas for the long run down to 130R, which itself is still flat out. Up into 8th gear now for Lance Stroll. Take a look at the speed as we're going in. 310 at the apex in 130R. Now jumping on the brakes. Turn right, turn left, turn right again, get on the gas, but not too hard. There you go, up through 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th gear on DRS. Across the line goes Lance Stroll with a 129.345. That's good for P8 at the moment. He is safe as they run right now. Lando Norris still setting the world alight. P6, 128. That is a good time. Romain Grosjean, P9, 129.144. Lance Stroll now on the bubble, believe it or not. Carlos Sainz up into P7. McLaren, P6 and P7, respectively. Norris and Sainz. Great performance by the Woking-based team. On board with Kimi Raikkonen. He is currently P12, and he has finished. Raikkonen eliminated. Grosjean is on the bubble. Giovinazzi, P11, eliminated. Raikkonen down to 13th. Stroll in 12th. Alex Albon, wow, he's gone into P2 right now. 128.156, I believe that time was. P2, he's still 0.3 off of Lewis Hamilton, and Valtteri Bottas now sets provisional pole for Q2, 127.688. He's done for the session, provisional pole. Daniel Kvyat eliminated as we follow him now around the S's. I believe that is everybody who needed to finish a lap. Eliminated in Q2. Giovinazzi, Stroll, Raikkonen, Kvyat, and Hülkenberg, who we don't know what happened there. They'll be looking to diagnose whatever that problem was. The top 10 advance to the pole position shootout. On board with Kimi Raikkonen in P13. He's done, at least for now. Remember, the race is going to follow only in a couple of hours. P1 in Q2 is set by Valtteri Bottas. The lap time was 127.688. Last year's pole time, I actually don't know offhand what last year's pole time was. I would have to find that. And, of course, everybody who was still running at the end of Q2 will now recover to the pit lane, and we'll have a little bit of a break before Q3. Should only be about 4 or 5 minutes. Alex Albon's family there looking on in the Red Bull garage. It's got to be cool for them. Not quite a local race. Of course, Alex Albon is Thai. He believe he was born in Britain, grew up in Thailand, and came back to Britain later on. But he does race under the Thai flag. The first Thai driver since Prince Bira, believe it or not, in, I believe, 1954. Christian Gaitan says last year's pole position was a 121. That seems a little fast. And again, a little bit of an intermission here, waiting for Q3 to start. Let's hear from Robert Kubica. Kubica basically saying what we all suspected. He just threw one of the left side wheels off, the left rear, and then the left front followed suit, and that was basically all she wrote for his qualifying performance today. We'll have to see if they're going to get that car fixed in time for the race. Lap record here, the race lap record, that would be 127.319, perhaps? Nick Libby, the crash really wasn't bad. It was a high-speed crash, but he bumped along the wall for a while, so there was no big stop involved. Typically, when you see a car run into something hard and then stop immediately, that's when you start to worry. But he bounced into the wall, and then the wall just sort of dug into the side to rip the side off, and then the bare left side of the car dug into the dirt, and it slowed him down that way. So there was no big deceleration going on. So Kubica is totally fine. Magnussen's incident was very similar to Kubica's, but Magnussen, his problem started a little bit earlier on. Kubica just threw it off the road, basically. Magnussen picked up a whole bunch of oversteer under acceleration exiting the chicane, and he got a bit of a four-wheel drift going, and it never really settled down. He just kept trying to accelerate. He didn't back out of the throttle too much, and he really should have done more because the car just swapped ends eventually, and that's how he found the wall backwards. Yes, excitement and safety are two very different things. And I think most people, when they say that the safety takes away from the excitement, I think what they're really trying to get at is when we start races in the rain behind the safety car rather than doing a standing start, or when we give drivers penalties for impeding other drivers or driving dangerously when in reality cars didn't even come close to hitting each other. I think that's what they're trying to get at. But things like things like the restraint technology, the Hans system, the Tech Pro barriers, the much improved tire barriers, the things that really enable drivers to walk away from scary accidents, those are things that I think they enable the drivers to take even more risks and to know that they're probably going to be okay if it all goes wrong. And in many cases, 9 times out of 10, probably higher odds than that actually, they do walk out of big accidents totally okay. It is the unforeseen circumstance that presents all of the trouble these days. As we saw at this very race in 2014, that car was in a position it was never designed to be in, and there's no prayer, unfortunately, for Jules Bianchi. Much more recently, this year, the Formula 2 race at Spa, these cars are just simply not designed to be hitting each other at 200 miles an hour dead on like that. And those are the things that you can't design for, and those are the things that are always going to be possible, no matter what we do to mitigate the risks. But the people, I think anyway, who say that the safety doesn't allow it to be exciting anymore, I think they're talking about the regulations and penalties and things like that rather than the passive safety measures that the cars have and the circuits have. Green lights are on for Q3, 12 minutes in this session. Charles Leclerc leaves the Ferrari garage right now. Again, this is our pole position shootout. At the end of this, we will have the top 10 starting positions figured out. Out on track right now are Bottas, Hamilton, Leclerc, Norris, Sainz, Gasly, and Sebastian Vettel. We saw Mercedes 0.3 per lap faster than Ferrari in Q2, and we also saw Alexander Albon representing Red Bull there in P2. Both Red Bulls are in this session. Albon just leaving the circuit, just leaving the pit lane now. Mercedes on the radio just warning Bottas that they're expecting the field to bunch up in the last chicane. Previous winners of pole position in Japan from 2014 to last year, Rosberg, Hamilton. It is a Mercedes monopoly here in the turbo hybrid era in terms of pole position. Valtteri Bottas through the final corner to begin his first flying lap of Q3. Bottas is on the clock. He's followed by Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, basically running in a protracted formation here beginning Q3. Holy Volcano asking, could Albon out-qualify Verstappen? Sure, he absolutely could. I don't know if he will, but that Red Bull is fast, and both of those guys quite evidently are fast in it, so that's anybody's game in terms of that intramural squabble there. And Zach Peterson asking my opinion on buffalo wings. I'm going to be that guy and say boneless wings. Bottas coming out of the spoon corner now, down the back straight toward 130R. He is going to be setting provisional pole position no matter what happens, provided that he does cross the timing line to finish this lap. Lewis Hamilton is about 5 seconds down the road. Lando Norris, however, currently on provisional pole with a 129.248. Take a picture, McLaren fans, because that is about to fall right now. Valtteri Bottas goes provisional pole 127.696. Lewis Hamilton is behind, and he does not take pole position at this time. 127.832. On board with Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. He goes P4 129.379. The McLaren's 1.5 seconds behind the Mercedes. There is Charles Leclerc going to provisional pole position 127.535. Sebastian Vettel crosses the line. He goes provisional pole 127.212. Max Verstappen crosses the line, only P5, 127.014. New track record at this time, held by Sebastian Vettel, 127.212. Alexander Albon is well off of provisional pole at this time. He's just coming through the triangle at the end of the lap. Little bit of a power slide through the exit of the chicane, around the final corner to start-finish. Where is Albon? P6, 128.056. Verstappen is 0.7 back. Albon is 8.5 back. On board with Sebastian Vettel on what should be his cooldown lap. At this point, we will see everybody go back into the pit lane, and they will sit there for about 3 minutes until they all decide, hey, let's get stuck in traffic. Cozy McRae, you reckon somebody might be able to sneak into the 126s? Well, we're only 0.2 off of it right now. I don't think it's impossible. Perhaps Ferrari will go to modalità festa, as they may say in Italian. Or perhaps Mercedes will go into Superschnell mode, or whatever they say in German. In replay on board with Valtteri Bottas, the slightest of lockups heading into the hairpin there didn't really impede him too much, but we're only talking about fractions of seconds here, and something like that can well be the difference between pole position and maybe even third on the grid. Again, in replay with Bottas through the triangle, got a little bit of a tank slapper on through the second apex there. Car bouncing around so much there. So cool to watch that in slow motion. Charles Leclerc there in replay coming through the final corner. The car getting a little bit squirrely, nothing too dramatic. What did that look like from the outside? Yeah, it looked pretty cool. A little bit of a four-wheel drift there. All in a day's work for the young Monegasque star. And with 4 minutes, 10 seconds to go, the Ferrari garage looks completely normal. No wheels on the car. Nobody looks frantic. Pit wall not particularly interested in too many things that are going on there. At 4 minutes, nobody is out on track. All the Mercedes mechanics just sitting there with their arms folded, wondering, should we send the car yet? No, let's wait another minute. As far as Sebastian Vettel needing to retire, yes, we were all saying that through last year and through most of this year so far. I think what happened was he went back to Maranello, particularly after the Italian Grand Prix, and they said, hey, Sebastian, how you say, go faster. And then he's decided to go faster than he won in Singapore. So, I think they lit the fire under him a little bit, and he's now starting to bring in the results when they matter. And no, in the next 2 minutes, the track is not going to heat up any more appreciably than it already has. There are effectively no clouds in the sky right now over Suzuka, and, well, the whole track is in direct sunlight. It's as warm as it's going to get, at least until race time. Brand new soft tires on the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas, and I assume on everybody else's car at this time. And Sebastian Vettel leaves the garage, as has Charles Leclerc, as has Pierre Gasly. Nope, not Pierre Gasly. Albon. Yes, Gasly. Yes, Gasly. How about that? Verstappen, Albon, Norris, Grosjean, Sainz, Hamilton, Bottas, and Vettel Leclerc all have left the garage. I had to remember who is in what car there. Gasly is in Q3, and he is in a Toro Rosso. Now, everybody will absolutely crawl around on this outlap, so their tires won't be warm enough and their brakes won't be warm enough, and then they'll all complain how they had no grip on their flying lap. Let's see, who is currently leading this pack? It is certainly not Sebastian Vettel right now. Obviously, you want to be in front at all times, but particularly now when you absolutely need a clear track in front of you, whoever is across the line first to begin this flying lap is going to be in the pound seat, provided that they've got a car that's quick enough. And out of this top 10, theoretically, I think you could see either one of the Ferraris, either one of the Mercedes, or perhaps the shock of all shocks, maybe even Alex Albon taking pole position here. He was amazing in Q2. I've never seen him do that before. We'll see what he does. Charles Leclerc, first to begin a flying lap in this final part of Q3, 51 seconds to go. This will be the only flying lap for all the runners. Leclerc throws it into turn one, rather. Exiting turn two, it's really a double apex corner there, that long right-hander to begin the lap. Through the S's now. Leclerc's Ferrari looks so planted through here. Yes, it does. Direction change is so great. A little bit of a wobble there just going into the final part of the S's, into Degner 1. Watch this. This is going to be quick. There it is. Absolutely wonderful. Just the perfect amount of exit curbing there through Degner 1. Perfect exit through Degner 2 as well, coming up to the hairpin to end Sector 1. Where is he lining up? So far, he is on for a personal best right now in this session. Remember, Sebastian Vettel still on provisional pole with a 127.212. All those vortices spilling over the rear wing of Charles Leclerc's car. 60% humidity out there today, so there is some water in the air. However, no threat of rain at this time. Down the back straight, coming up to the 130R corner for the final time this session. Charles Leclerc throws it in. He is 0.182 up on Sebastian Vettel through Sector 2. Sector 3, what has he got through the final corner? He looked a little bit delayed through that exit there. Is that going to hurt him? Across the line for Charles Leclerc, that is a 127.253. That is not good enough for pole position for the Monegasque. Here comes Max Verstappen through the final corner, and the stopwatch says 127.851. He is not improved on that time. Max Verstappen remains fifth. Sebastian Vettel crosses the line. That is a 127.064. New track record. Sebastian Vettel retains provisional pole position. Alex Albon across the line. He remains in P6, 127.851. Here comes Valtteri Bottas, 127.293. P3 for Valtteri Bottas. Lewis Hamilton across the line. P4 for Lewis Hamilton, 127.302. That is going to do it for the session. Sebastian Vettel takes pole position for the Japanese Grand Prix. He will line up in front of his teammate Charles Leclerc, just 0.189 behind. First row, Ferrari lockout. P3 for Valtteri Bottas. P4, Lewis Hamilton. Fifth, Max Verstappen. Sixth, Alex Albon. Seventh, Carlos Sainz. Eighth, Lando Norris. Ninth, Pierre Gasly. And 10th, Romain Grosjean. La macchina è stata bellissima questa mattina. Those are the words of Sebastian Vettel. The car has been so beautiful this morning. There it was for Charles Leclerc. I was right, calling it in the moment. He was just ever so delayed getting out of the final corner there, and that was enough. That was it. It was just the smallest of twitches out the back of that Ferrari, and that could well have cost him the basically 0.2 of a second between he and pole position. Well, how about this? We went from wondering whether or not this race was going to happen at all this weekend, now to having qualifying on Sunday morning. The Grand Prix is going to follow in only about 2 hours' time, and we're going to see a Ferrari front row. I was not expecting that. That is the 57th career pole position for Sebastian Vettel at what he just described as his favorite circuit. He lines up next to his teammate on row 1. That's going to be an interesting thing. The story of qualifying, though, I think it has to be Mercedes. Yeah, they're all right. They're not doing bad by any means, but where was that get in there, Lewis? Where has been that get in there, Lewis? Yes, we know that he won the Russian Grand Prix 2 weeks ago, but we've got ourselves an interesting little development here. Ferrari front row lockout again, and we have Mercedes apparently off the boil. Mattia Binotto, the team principal for Ferrari, walking back into the garage. There's a man who's content with his day's work so far, but it's not quite over yet. I've always tended to believe that Mattia Binotto, he sort of resembles Harry Potter in about 40 years. Damon Hill doing our interviews with our top 3 qualifiers. Sebastian Vettel saying that there was headwind going through the S's. That's interesting, and that's actually cool to know. That is going to be giving them more downforce. So we said at the top of all of this that if you've got a headwind in these cars, you get more downforce than your speed would normally give you by itself. So that certainly helped him secure this 57th career pole position. Damon Hill, of course, he also loves Suzuka. In 1996, this is the place where he won the World Championship. Norman D. Robinson, greetings to the Bermuda Islands. How are ya? I've got to say, Norman, I haven't been to Bermuda since 2003. I would very much like to get back there someday. Still, probably the best tropical locale I've ever visited. Valtteri Bottas there. Lewis Hamilton not even in the top 3 today. He's clearly going to win the World Championship for the 6th time this year, but interesting to see the World Champion not in the top 3. Matthias, yes, certainly I would say that this is probably the time to be getting some sleep before the race. The formation lap, I believe, is going to get underway. I don't know if it's going to get underway on the hour precisely. I had seen a start time of 1 a.m. East Coast U.S. I don't know if that is still the case. And yes, the formation lap will begin at 10 past the hour, so that is a normal procedure. So for East Coast of the United States, you want to wake up at about 12:45, so you can sleep for roughly 2 hours. Might be able to do that. Y saludos a Argentina, Matías. Let's see, do we want to wake up or do we want to stay awake? I don't know. ESPN has cut off their coverage at this time. They're going back to, let's see, this appears to be college-level egg ball in the United States, which apparently has a cult following that I've never quite understood. But, yeah, so ESPN has now cut it off. I don't know if we're going to stay awake or go to sleep or whatever, but I do know that we're not going to continue live streaming all the way up to the end of the Grand Prix. That's be a little bit crazy of me, but I am planning on being back a little bit before the start of the formation lap here. I would aim to be online by 1 a.m., so I would aim to be online by the hour. However, I can't guarantee that I won't sleep through it. I'm going to try not to, but we'll see. I'm planning to live stream the commentary for the race, so we shall see about that. But until we do get set up to do the stream for the race, I thank you all very much for joining me for this impromptu Sunday qualifying stream, and hopefully we're going to have an interesting race. Now everybody just has 2 hours to turn the cars back around and go line up on a grid, so this is going to be an interesting time. Until next time, I thank you all very much for joining me. For Ironman 601, saying thanks, and of course, we will see you soon in about 2 hours.